Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. So, y'all, we always start off by me talking about me, and yeah, for once, there's not a whole lot going on. I am actually back home this week. As y'all know, I've been traveling for the last couple months mostly, and actually have been settled back in a little bit at home, which is really nice and really exciting. I actually put in 2 days volunteering at Aquarium of Niagara, which, as y'all know, I love doing. And in this case, it was extra special because I got to see our penguin chick multiple times, actually. And it's such a little ball of floof. I don't even know how to describe the ridiculousness that is a growing Humboldt penguin chick. Like, this bird is almost the size of its parents. Almost. Not quite, but almost. But the coloration is still just gray floof. I know that floof is not a color, it's a texture, but it's also not a real word. But yeah, it's just a gray ball of floof with a tiny little head, and the wings are so long that they drag on the ground, and it's started making noises, like braying type noises, but it can't really do it. And it's hilarious, just these high-pitched kind of weird velociraptor baby noises that just crack me up. But yeah, so that's been really cool and really exciting to be back at my home facility and at a place that I love so much. And y'all, I highly recommend checking out penguin chicks if the opportunity ever presents itself to you, because they are weird and cool and just, I don't know. I can't believe they become what they become. Like, penguins are weird and cool, right? But like, yeah, that chick is something else, man. I'll tell you that much. And so, yeah, the only other real thing to talk about, I think, is it was World Tree Kangaroo Day last week on the 21st. If you're listening to this, it was 2 days ago. And I spent the day peppering the internet with pictures and videos of tree kangaroos that I've gotten to take from some of the facilities that have let me hang out with their tree kangaroos a bit. And I think it was a really cool experience. It raised a lot of awareness. I got a lot of those comments of people being like, I've never heard of this animal and stuff like that. And it was really cool, with one exception. And I have to say, I'm not saying this at all in a negative way. I was entertained, and I want to share this with y'all. So I was, getting comments and doing the whole social media thing. And all of a sudden, I see a comment pop up. And the best part of this is, not only was it on a video, but it was on a video of Wren, the baby tree kangaroo, that is doing little crunches. And as y'all know, tree kangaroos are known for their crunches, and they are adorable. And we just did the Crunchathon as part of the AZA Safe Tree Kangaroos of Papua New Guinea program to raise awareness for, the species. And it went really well. But this one person just commented, watching this animal smack its way through meals isn't my thing. And I was like, okay, I don't know why you felt the need to tell me that, or to tell anyone anything, really. But
Yeah, I don't know. It cracked me up, and I truly wasn't offended. I'm being a little silly about this because I'm being offended on behalf of the tree kangaroos. But it really cracked me up, and this is an older person with 25 followers on Instagram who's out there making these comments. Is not a follower of mine. I guess just saw it, the way you see posts that are not your followers or who you're following or whatever, and just felt the need to comment that. And I have just been laughing about it all day. And again, truly not annoyed. Can't stress that enough. But so entertained that this person who, when you go on their profile, because I was curious, I was like, who doesn't like tree kangaroo crunches? And that's fair. You don't have to. I get it. But I went on their profile, and this person has these pictures from when they were a child back in the 1940s. So like literally just an old person doing the Instagram thing and commenting along. And yeah, I don't know. I got a big kick out of it, and I thought y'all would as well. So that's really all that's been going on for me this week. But yeah, so this is Rossifari Zoo News, and so this is a crowdsourced Zoo News program, and if you see anything that is Zoo News worthy, you can tag me in it on the socials at Rossifari or on TikTok at Rossifari Pod. Make sure you're following along there. You can also email me, rossifaripod@gmail.com, and I'll say your name at the end of the episode. So with all of that said, let's get to it.
We've been taking care of pandas and the seals, taking care of pandas, feeding meals. We've been taking care of pandas with Zoo News, taking care of pandas and picking up their poos, pooping out.
All right, so for today's headline story, we are going to talk about the misinformation that I have seen spreading about some zoos on the online this week. As a matter of fact, this week I saw not one, not two, but three different stories that all have serious questions or misinformation or a weird, inauthentic, and inaccurate bent to them. And it just seems like more and more people have realized that you can just use your own take on things, your own captions, post images out of context, etc., and get a whole lot of people to believe what you're saying, regardless of whether it's the truth or not. And it becomes this thing where people who are on a crusade oftentimes find themselves willing to sacrifice the truth to make a point. And that's not okay. And then other people who are on the same crusade see that post, and then they actually think it is the truth. So they share it with full conviction of truth because they think it is the truth, and they can't believe that somebody who shares their convictions would lie to them. And anyway, it's a whole thing. And it's really, it's interesting watching it in the zoo world in particular. But yeah, I think we see it with political stuff and all kinds of other things too. And I'm sure y'all know what I'm talking about. But so we're going to start off talking about some footage from a park called Marineland and Bickies, which is in France. So you may remember that activists in France worked to get orcas banned from participating in shows, and eventually, they worked on enacting a ban to have no cetaceans in human care in France at all. It is illegal. Now, the bill was considered a victory by anti-zoo activists, but as often happens when people have a mission like getting legislation passed like that, the consequences of the legislation were not really considered by the activists. And that includes what might happen to the animals in question. So on Zoo News over the last couple of months, we've occasionally touched on this and talked about animals that were going to parks from facilities that, at least on the surface and to the non-anti-zoo crowd, I guess you could just call us the pro-zoo crowd, thought were pretty good facilities where these orcas were living and dolphins were living, and they were being transported to facilities in other countries that don't have as strong regulations and that, again, by all appearances, I'm not there, but appear to just be worse facilities. So saving animals by having them moved to worse facilities, I guess, is it's one strategy. And so now all of the orcas are gone from France, except for the last two, which are at this Marineland park. And unfortunately, once it became a thing where they couldn't do shows anymore, the park wasn't getting as many people coming in, and they knew they'd have to get rid of these animals. So eventually the park closed down. Also, as a side note, the orcas no longer get the enrichment of doing shows for people and such. So new footage of this park has surfaced, and it's a still photo showing the orcas, and the caption along with it is claiming that the park is abandoned and that the two orcas and also a pod of 12 dolphins are just stuck there without proper care or anything like that. Now, I don't know Marineland Antilles. I've never been there. And so I can't speak to the conditions there, but I did see multiple people who have been there and are in the cetacean world saying it's actually a pretty great park. And then I did a little bit of my own research, on the Google, like nothing crazy here. And it just was not hard to discover that the park has a care staff and a vet staff still on hand, and that these people are doing their absolute best to take care of these animals. And the captions used words like abandoned park and claimed that the animals are in, quote, deteriorating tanks. Those phrases mean that the public discourse is being set by people on the outside who frankly don't know what they're seeing, who aren't experts, and who are at least partially responsible for the current situation the animals find themselves in because they got this ban pushed through without thinking, oh, hey, what will happen to the animals? The animals that they cared so much about that they got this law passed, caused this. Yeah. So, again, I don't know everything that's going on. I don't have all the info, but it's super clear that this post that has gone viral and has been picked up by international news does not have all the info or any credible source to it. It's a caption on a photo, and I caption photos sometimes with oh, this is what this tree roux is thinking. It's saying, hello, do you have carrots? And to be fair, that tree roux was probably thinking that, but I don't know that, right? It's not how it works. And that actually brings us to our next example, which is a story that is ongoing from the Los Angeles Zoo. Now, before I get into this story, when I was out in LA, I did try and get in touch with the LA Zoo and have them on the podcast. But I was told by many keepers there, I got to know a few of the keepers there pretty well, and I was told that the zoo would not be working with me or basically anyone outside of huge national media because LA is actually the home of organizations like PETA, and there are all kinds of other, quote, animal rights activist groups out there. And as such, they can literally just get out of bed late, take a shower, grab a coffee, go and protest, and then, I don't know, go get their nails done or whatever. It's just not a big deal. There's no travel involved and stuff. So the LA Zoo deals with an unfortunate number of ill-informed activists, even compared to other zoos because just of where they are, right? And so, what happened here in this case is that the zoo we'll figure that out maybe at some point here, two elderly Asian elephants, 40-year-old Billy and 59-year-old Tina. And if you know Asian elephants, that is very old. And in April, the zoo announced that they'd be going to the Tulsa Zoo, which has a brand new expanded elephant habitat that is just fantastic. And of course, activists started to complain, saying that no, these elephants need to go to a sanctuary because, again, most of these people don't seem to understand the difference between the word zoo and sanctuary. And it got really weird. Not only did they sue to prevent the move, which they lost, by the way, but they also started spreading just information about these animals, and sometimes it was just false. Like one of the groups shared this story about the fact that they both had been born at the zoo and lived there their entire lives, when in fact they are both rescue animals who did not start their lives at the zoo, but still lived most of their lives at the zoo. And so, like, I don't know, I think almost in a way, saying that these animals were rescued would give them more of a compassionate story. I don't know. I don't understand how these particular people think. But it was just a blatant lie, but they were sharing it on the interwebs. And of course, the local media ran with it. And there was just a lot of like weird little lies like that don't really seem to matter, but they were sharing them anyway. And so as I'm recording this is where this gets really weird. There's actually a debate over whether the elephants are still at the zoo or not, which is such a great example of how little information the people in these groups actually have. Some groups claim the elephants have been moved, and others claim they are still there. And the conflicting arguments arise, at least in part, from the narrative that each group wants to be spreading. So there's one group in particular that wants to present what happened as the animals having been whisked away in the dead of the night without an announcement as proof that the zoo, quote, snuck them out and are being evil. But of course, y'all listen to Rossifari. You know that that's how animal transfers work, right? We're not going to say exactly when an animal is leaving and being transported, even if a facility does tell you the last day to come and say goodbye to the animal. It's not like that night that animal leaves. They're going to be off habitat, or they're going to be, getting a vet check or whatever. Because honestly, when you think about it, so many of these animals are endangered that it would just be foolish to let criminals know, hey, 2 elephants or, a rhino, which has rhino horn, or 3 red pandas or whatever are going to be driving, on this highway at this time. That would just be stupid. So we don't do that. Even when you think when an animal is leaving, you don't. When it's going to be off exhibit, right? And that's just how animal transfers always work. So yeah, if that is what happened, then it's not evil. It's how this works. But then another group claims that the elephants are still at the zoo and are being kept inside and tortured, which again, we all know is not true, even if they are inside. But I love this because both groups came up with their own narrative and they contradict each other. And now there are these weird 2 narratives, one of which has to be false. And both groups are trying to control the story and, kind of tell the general public what to think. But even the general public is now hearing both sides of this, and the LA Zoo isn't commenting, which is really smart. And so, I just think it's really cool that the zoo actually did announce the move. I think that was a great idea. I think it definitely opened them up to all of this activism, but they're no strangers to it. And I think it did give people a chance to go and say goodbye to animals that they might have literally grown up with, almost their entire lives, which is fantastic. So I think it's cool that the LA Zoo did that. And I don't know personally where these elephants are right now, but I love that these activist groups that are supposedly such dogged watchdogs also don't know. I mean, they're elephants, right? You can't sneak them out in the back of a Honda Fit. So, it's just crazy to think about. Okay, hey guys, I am interrupting my own podcast here. So, after I recorded this episode, the Tulsa Zoo did announce that these 2 elephants, Billy and Tina, have arrived at the zoo and are being integrated into the herd and everything. So the LA Zoo did move them. So that activist group was correct in that the elephants are gone. The other group was literally just lying and making up this whole thing that, oh no, they're still here and being tortured. And they're just not, obviously. But again, moving animals like that is how you do the thing. It's very common. And there is nothing malicious about it, much to the chagrin of these anti-zoo people who want to make it that way. So anyway, just wanted to share that update. And now I'm going to upload this new version of the episode and then go back to sleep. Okay, bye. And then that brings us to a third story that I saw this week. And it's a little bit smaller of one, but I can actually comment on this one even more than I can on the other ones because it's at my hometown zoo, which is the Buffalo Zoo. Now, the Buffalo Zoo is great. And I've actually had multiple people ask me why I've not had them on the podcast yet when I live here. A lot of people see that as kind of almost suspicious when I don't have a facility near me on. And the truth is, I would love to have the Buffalo Zoo on the podcast. I reached out when I first moved up here, and they were going through a transition in the PR department. And I decided to wait until everything settled down and talk to the new PR person and stuff. And then honestly, y'all, Rossifari's just been popping off. I've got months of interviews already recorded. Y'all know about the trips I've been on, and we've got some more cool ones coming up soon. And there just hasn't been an opportunity for me to be home and reach out and make that connection. But I say that just to tell you that, I love the Buffalo Zoo. And if they never want to be on the podcast and all of that, that's fine. I don't care. I mean, of course I care. I want everyone to love me, but I'm okay with it, and I support them, and I am a member, and I love to go there, and it's a great facility. So I just wanted to say that. Now, like I said, this story is on a much smaller scale than elephants that may or may not be at a zoo. But there is a reason I'm going to mention this, which is that a person posted a picture of a drain with garbage around it, saying that it was at the Buffalo Zoo and saying that it was in an animal habitat. And there was no other context given, but this person has turned it into, they're trying to get a petition going and trying to say that the zoo sucks and blah, blah, blah. And I was there. I was there the day this photo was supposedly taken. I had my membership and I went and I wanted to see some red pandas and all the other cool animals there. And so I was at the zoo. And as you can all imagine, I have a critical eye when I am at a zoo. Not in a negative way, but just we all know that I know a thing or three about zoos. And so I keep my eyes out. And I can tell you that none of the exhibits that had animals in them had crazy filled, backed up drains with garbage around them. I would have clocked that. Now, I'm not going to lie. It's very possible that that photo was taken in a moment where maybe someone threw something into an exhibit or something like that, and something weird happened, and the keepers hadn't gotten to it yet. I suppose it's possible. It's also very possible that there is a lot of construction being done at the facility right now. They're cleaning out the sea lion habitat and everything, and it's very possible that the photo was taken in one of those habitats where there were no animals. I can tell you that there were no animals in the photo, but the thing is, I was there that day and the zoo looked fabulous. And I can also tell you that animal welfare is a huge deal at the Buffalo Zoo. I know the person in charge of it. You guys actually know the person in charge of it. I'm not going to share that secret because it's not mine to share. But somebody who has been on this podcast and who a whole lot of you really loved and commented on the episode is now very much in charge of the welfare at the Buffalo Zoo. And this is a person who I think incredibly highly of. And so, yeah, y'all, whatever that photo was, be it a non-animal exhibit, be it an animal exhibit where a weird thing happened and the staff took care of it as soon as they could, whatever. It definitely wasn't what is being presented, and it definitely does not deserve any weird kind of protest or stupid petition or, somebody trying to get Instagram famous from posting a picture. And so, yeah, all three of those stories just show how easy it is to share misinformation about zoos and everything else, frankly, on the internet. And so I really hope that facilities keep being more transparent, keep sharing the good work they're doing, let people who are slightly independent, like me, like Jungle Jordan, right? All of us that come into these places, let us show what you're doing. I think it helps. And I think that if you show what you're doing, then when people do see these things, they'll actually be able to stop and say, wait a minute, hold. I see this, but I also know that I've seen this and this and this, and it's all great. So something for those facilities to consider. And that brings us to our births for the week. Port Moresby Nature Park in Papua New Guinea has announced the birth of a Goodfellows tree kangaroo to Mom Jewel. And the little Joey is a boy. As a matter of fact, the park is having a naming contest on their Facebook page. Now, it closes on May 24th, and Papua New Guinea is very far ahead of those of us in the United States. So if you're hearing this and you want to participate in the naming contest, get your butt onto the Port Moresby Nature Park Facebook page and follow the contest. It's free, and it's a thing that you can do to help name a tree kangaroo. And speaking of animals with great names, Tanganyika Wildlife Park, our good friends, have officially announced the birth of a clouded leopard named Lemonade. Now, you might be wondering, why Lemonade? Well, the parents are Larry and Adelaide. So you put it together, and what do you get? Addery. No, wait. The other one, Lemonade. And it's awesome. Now, I will tell you, I got to see this cloudy when I was at Tanganyika, and I got some really cute photos. So I am going to post those today, and you're going to get to see this awesome little adorable cub named Lemonade, and Tanganyika will be doing a great job sharing the little one on the socials and letting you watch this cub grow up. The Jacksonville Zoo has announced the birth of their first ever crowned lemur. Now, this little crowned lemlet is born to Mom Jupiter, who is doing a fantastic job taking care of the little one. So fantastic, as a matter of fact, that the vet staff hasn't had to step in at all, and so the sex is unknown, but the little one is visible on the habitat, riding around on Mom. Congrats to the team. Zoo Goerlitz has announced the birth of an Indo-Chinese sika deer. Now, this is a species that is extinct in the wild, and there's a population of roughly 450 of this deer species across 40 zoos in the world. And that's it. So at this point, every birth is a huge part of this insurance population. And there's hope that, eventually they can set up breeding plans to let this species maybe even get reintroduced into the wild. But for right now, we've got to keep every birth in human care being celebrated, because that's all that's left. The Calgary Zoo has announced the birth of 3 white-ruffed lemur pups to parents Ini and Manabe. They're doing very well, and that's really all I have to say about that one. But yay, lemlets. 3 red wolf pups have been born at the Museum of Life and Science in Durham, North Carolina, and 6 red wolf pups have been born at Rosamond Gifford Zoo. That is 9 new red wolves for the most critically endangered species in North America. Really, really exciting stuff. Now, the little ones at Rosamond Gifford, there are 4 females and 2 males, and they were born to Mom Evie and Dad Sage. And for all 9 of these, I don't know if they're going to be candidates for reintroduction or if they're going to be part of the breeding and insurance population in human care, but these animals are so needed. It's so exciting that there are so many new red wolf pups. Gon Kiog, a baby Bactrian camel, has been born at Idaho Falls Zoo. Always cool to see a baby camel born. And then last but not least in births this week, ZooWorld Zoological Park has announced the birth of the first aardwolf pups born in the U.S. in over 40 years. Now, this is a species, I did say aardwolf, not aardvark, and this is a species that is only seen in 5 zoos in the United States. It's this weird little animal that they look awesome. They're related to hyenas. They eat exclusively termites, and they have not been reproduced in human care since the 1980s. So very exciting stuff. I know some of y'all will know about aardwolves because they have them at the Cincinnati Zoo, and it's always so exciting to see them when you get to get a good look at them. But yeah, so that is very cool. And that brings us to our deaths for the week. And we're going to start off by me shutting up for a minute and letting our good friend Sam Evans share a remembrance.
Hi, my name is Sam. I'm a previous zookeeper at Mill Mountain Zoo. They just recently lost their about 12-year-old snow leopard named Bali. He was an amazing joy who brought so much happiness and silliness and goofiness to guests and keepers alike. I don't know a single person that's met him that hasn't fallen in love with him. And while I haven't worked at Mill Mountain Zoo in like over 6 years now, the loss is still so hard, even though I haven't worked with him in 6 years. Even when I would come back and visit, he would still come and greet me at the fence when I called him to try and play. I got to see him about a year ago. And he immediately, when he saw me and heard my voice, crouched down to stalk. He was so silly, beloved. And I know how hard it must be for his current keepers. And definitely all of his former keepers out there. He will be so missed. He was such a joy to work with, from playing with pumpkins and shredding a whole pumpkin into millions of pieces, to rolling around and paint instead of painting with it, to being a little bit scared of snowfall. He was a very big joy. He will be really missed.
Thank you for your vulnerability, Sam. And to those listening, I have to say that I cut that almost in half because of all of the pauses and crying and frankly, snotty noises. And I'm not saying that to make fun of Sam at all, but that was her 7th take, y'all. And this is an animal that she didn't work with for 6 years. And yeah, so I love how real and raw that is, and it's such a great reminder that you know, I try to give these little animal eulogies each week, and I do my best. But there are people like Sam out there that are affected by each one of these deaths, and yeah, I think it's a very real and very hard part of this industry, and you've certainly heard that talked about on here on the podcast, especially in that episode with Emily Mack. And yeah, I just wanted to share that, and yeah, there's something so, even as sad as that story is, and even as heart-wrenching as it is to hear Sam be so upset, the snow leopard that's afraid of snow can also make me chuckle even during these hard stories. So thank you for sharing, Sam. Moving on from that, at Point Defiance Zoo, a 12-year-old harbor seal named Saya passed away during a medical procedure. Not a lot of details were given, but Saya was a really joyful animal and just beloved, especially amongst her trainers. So sending love to that team, especially to the vet team. It's always hard to lose an animal during a medical procedure. Bergen County Zoo has said goodbye to Quillo, a North American porcupine. At 22 years old, Quillo was the oldest North American porcupine in the United States. It's incredible, 22. And as an ambassador animal, that means that Quillo really brought a love of his species and rodents in general to a heck of a lot of guests, and really did a lot of amazing ambassador work for the species. So thank you for that, Quillo. And then last but not least, Beaker, the Virginia opossum that lives at Ecotarium passed away. Now, Beaker was 2 years and 11 months old, and after talking about a 22-year-old animal, that might not sound so old, but actually, that is right at the high end of life expectancy for a Virginia opossum in human care, and significantly older than the life expectancy of one in the wild. Beaker is another one of those great ambassador animals that people just loved all the time, and opossums are such cool animals. So another presence that will be truly, truly missed. And then moving on from births and deaths, we get to a couple of zoo news stories. The Memphis Zoo was forced recently to remind people not to throw items into habitats because one of their Komodo dragons needed surgery to remove a shoe that was thrown into its habitat. A shoe. Fortunately, a guest saw the shoe get thrown into the habitat and spoke up to staff right away, and they were on it on the radio, got the Komodo dragon sedated, and were able to get the shoe out of the dragon. That could have been a much more challenging surgery and a much worse outcome for that animal had somebody not spoken up right away. So I'm so grateful to whoever that guest is for seeing what was happening, stepping in, and saving that Komodo's life, potentially. A couple storms have caused troubles for zoos this week. The St. Louis Zoo had tornadoes rip through the area, causing damage to the zoo and multiple days of closure. Some trees actually crashed through the butterfly habitat, which is a large glass dome, and some of those panes broke. Fortunately, the invertebrate keepers there train regularly for emergencies like this, and they used nets to catch and rehouse all the butterflies safely. There's actually another butterfly facility in St. Louis, which is fantastic. And they were even able to get in there and get all of the chrysalists and all of the non-flying butterflies out of there as well, which is amazing. And just in general, the zoo has been very transparent about the damage done and what they've needed to do to fix their zoo up. So I love seeing that transparency. The Racine Zoo also had storm damage this week, but no one, human or animal, was injured. Businesses in the community contributed to cleanup efforts, and the zoo was able to get back on its feet with no major issues. And Elmwood Park Zoo also saw a storm happen, and a tree fell on one of the primate enclosures and across a guest path. Now, the cool news is that no animals were hurt, but a few guests were injured. Nothing too crazy, but injured. So the zoo is now working with arborists to investigate the cause of that fall and also to look at other trees in the park to make sure that everything is safe. And again, just another example of a zoo that also had to close for the day because of a crazy storm happening. So, I don't know. That's crazy. Those are three very far apart facilities that all experienced storms this week, and it kind of feels like that's just going to keep happening because of climate change. Okay, so this next story is one of those that I want your take on, and I want you to listen to all of it first, okay? So Hogle Zoo changed their Pride event this year from Pride with Our Pride, which had a lion theme, of course, to Colors of Conservation. There was a quote that said, "In today's climate, certain words can unintentionally shift attention away from our mission." And so when I heard that, I was like pretty disappointed, not going to lie. Now, I will say Hogle is in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is, a pretty conservative area, to put it mildly. And I don't know. I was curious. There's a lot of stuff going on with the Trump administration about saying certain words and all that stuff. But when I went to the page to look at it, because this has been getting some attention because some people definitely have complained, it's still a very, they don't use the word pride, but the theming is all about how it takes people of all diverse colors in life to come together for conservation, and all of the naming and the signage is all rainbow, and it still reads very much as a Pride event. Like, if I hadn't known that their last thing was called Pride with Our Pride, and I saw this, I would be like, yep, that is totally their Pride event, and it is happening during Pride Month. And so I'm curious to get a feel for my audience and what y'all think about decisions like that, especially in today's climate. Especially where money is getting taken away from facilities and the federal government is bullying places. Literally, if you look at what's going on with Harvard right now, I won't go into it, but it's crazy pants. But literally bullying facilities for doing anything to do with diversity. Is this them saving their butts, or is this them being cowards, or what do you think? I like how pride themed it still is, but I am also a little disappointed in the change. But it's also focusing back on conservation, and tying those two things together doesn't suck. So I often see things both ways. And so I'm really curious to hear what your take on it is. And then last but not least, in the Zoo News section, the Cincinnati Reds are doing a red panda bobblehead giveaway on June 3rd. And y'all, it's not just any red panda, it's Zuko! Zuko, who was a baby at Greensboro Science Center that we got to see grow up together. Now, you have to get a special ticket package. This isn't like the normal things where they will be handing them out to the first 10,000 people or whatever. But if you buy that special ticket package, $2 of that package will go to the zoo, and you will get a Zuko bobblehead. I am not going to be able to make it to Cincinnati on June 3rd, but seriously, do I have any Cincy friends that would be able to get me a Zuko bobblehead? I would die. It would mean the world to me. So if any of you listening think you might be able to do that, get in touch with me. We can figure out details. Thanks.
Stereotypical animal podcast theme song. Here to bring it to conservation news.
All right, so the Livingstone's fruit bat has officially been downlisted from critically endangered to endangered. Now, this is a flying fox species of bat that mainly suffers from habitat loss, and it is currently only found on 2 islands in the Indian Ocean. But thanks to conservation efforts, those populations are growing, which is a huge deal. A new species of caterpillar has been found in Hawaii. And it is nicknamed the bone collector because it scavenges and decorates its silk case with body parts of dead insects, like fly wings and spider legs, to help it avoid being eaten by predators. Ick. Now, this is a species that was, like I said, only recently discovered, and it is only found in one small area of Oahu. So this is not a species that is necessarily thriving in the wild, but I really like the method that it is using to try to stick around. The government of Ecuador has officially recognized a connectivity corridor of protected land, connecting 2 of the most important protected areas of the Amazon. And these corridors, we use some different terminology for it, but it is just protected land between 2 areas of protected land. So that will enable animals to move between them. It helps to increase the biodiversity and the genetic diversity of the species that live in those areas. And now they have a safe way to get from point A to point B. And so that's just really exciting stuff. It's really nice to see the government doing good conservation stuff like that, Protecting land is not always the easiest thing, especially for developing nations, but props to Ecuador for doing the thing. And then we have 2 stories out of Australia. The Royal Botanic Gardens in Melbourne, Australia, has started using white noise machines to remove bats from the gardens. Now, it turns out that 20 years ago, bats were removed in a less kind way, but they have come back because the botanical gardens obviously have a lot to offer for them, and also because it's part of their natural habitat. And so there's a lot of conflict about whether or not white noise machines being used to scare off the bats is an acceptable thing. And a lot of the articles I read about this had their comments sections disabled and stuff. So I thought that was really interesting. And the main reason I'm sharing this story, honestly, is not even because of the bats themselves, but because it's such a great example of human-animal conflict. in a different light than we normally think about it, right? Because normally we talk about human-animal conflict, and it's like elephants trampling gardens in Africa, and so we set up these bee fences and all that stuff. But like it happens in super developed areas and in places like botanical gardens and in Melbourne, Australia, which is like a real city and stuff. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting look at the human-animal conflict side of things, and a nice reminder that we all experience it, every day. If you live in a place with human development and animals, then you experience it to some degree, whether you realize it or not. And then last in conservation news, we're sticking in Australia. The mountain pygmy possum population, say that 3 times fast, is growing nicely after concentrated conservation conversations, say that 3 times fast, led to a unique way of saving the species. A national park that I'm not going to try to pronounce the name of for fear of never being allowed into Australia, but that is located in New South Wales, saw the population of the species drop to around 700 animals after droughts and bushfires. The droughts in particular caused a drop in the Bogong moth population, which we've talked about the tracking of that and how successful that is going right now, which is really cool. But in this case, the Bogong moths are the main food source of the mountain pygmy possum. And so that became a big problem for that species. And so the National Parks and Wildlife Service started working with local primary schools to bake a weekly batch of what they called Bogong Bickies. Baked Bogong Bickies batch. Try saying that 3 times fast. Anyway, these were used to feed the species in their habitat, and, the area had been devastated. The moths were mostly gone, but then they had their bickies, and they started to eat them and thrive. And now, just a few years later, the population is close to 1,000 individuals just at the 2 population sites that were tracked, but with even more than that in the wild at this time. And I love everything about this story, from the ridiculous jokes that I'm making to my absolute fear of saying the place, but more importantly, to the fact that it is the government stepping in to save a species, that it is a perfect illustration of how when one species suffers, it can affect other species, because we've been talking about Bogong moths on this podcast for months. And now all of a sudden it turns out that, the mountain pygmy possum population is also affected because of those moths. See, it's all interconnected. Circle of life and all of that. And it involved citizen scientists and school kids getting involved, and just every level of this is incredible, and now the population is coming back. And that gives me so much hope and so much joy, and I love everything about it. So yay for all of that. In other news. All right, so it turns out that parrots name their babies. It's true. It's actually an old bit of news from, I think, back in 2014, but it's making the rounds again, and that's how the internet works, and I'd never heard it before, so I'm assuming you've never heard it before, so I'm sharing it with you. Basically, that's some anthropomorphism, but the truth is that many parrot species, the parents will give a unique call that they only use to get the attention of one of their chicks, and that chick will answer to the call not only from their parents, but for the rest of their lives as people hear it. So pretty similar to names. When I said as people hear it, I meant people meaning the parrots, of course, obviously, parrot people. Anyway, but I just find that fascinating. They're such intelligent birds, and yeah, it's just a very cool aspect of parrot parenting. And going back to baseball for a second after talking about Zuko, the Richmond Flying Squirrels, a minor league baseball team, have a promotion coming up on Tuesday, May 27th. Toe Bean Tuesday. That's right. After the success of multiple teams having dog days at their parks, including the Buffalo Bisons, which we've attended with our puppies, the Flying Squirrels are inviting people to bring their cats to the park. cats to a baseball game. Now, obviously, these animals need to stay crated, which does kill the humorous image I first got in my head when I pictured this. But yeah, cats to a baseball game. You know how I'm all like, indoor cats only, please? Yeah. Baseball games are outdoors.
Oh, animal holidays. Animal holidays. Hey!
All right, so May is National Duckling Month, National Lake Cleanup Month, and No Mow May. And for your individual days, the 23rd is World Turtle Day. And I am so confused about the fact that 3 of my 4 favorite species have their day in May. We had Binturong Day, World Tree Kangaroo Day, and now World Turtle Day. I don't get it. I don't know why. Pandas are out in September, but yeah, I'll take it. Makes for a good month for May. So anyway, the 23rd is World Turtle Day. The 25th starts Black Birders Week, which runs through the 31st. The 28th is World Dole Day, Whooping Crane Day, World Dugong Day, and World Otter Day. And the 29th is National Alligator Day. And those are your animal holidays for the week. All right, so there you have it, folks. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News is done. I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to all of my patrons and remind you that you can go to patreon.com/Rossifari to support the podcast for as little as $3 a month. And if you join to our highest tier, which is our Red Panda level, then you'll get to hear me say your name at the end of the episode like this. I'd like to say thank you to all of my Red Panda level patrons, including Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, and Kevin Williams. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who contributed stories this week, including Anya Keene, Colleen Lenahan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbook, Jay Meredith, Ken Tryon, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Natalie Taco, Ren Howell, Nancy Fetters, Kristen Khalil, Lizard Dunlevy, Julie Hodges Best, Barbara Bennett, Maddie Pats, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky, Sam Evans, Dr. Zoe Rossi, Elizabeth Charles. And actually, Elizabeth has sent me stories the last 2 weeks that are interconnected that I haven't gotten to on here yet, but I really want to. It's really interesting. So thank you, Elizabeth. They are coming. Sarah Gilsel, Ann Yoshioka, Crystal Chapman, and Amanda Berg. Thank you all so much for contributing to this week's episode. We'll be back on Tuesday with a brand new interview episode. And remember, friends, until then, the words newsy credits backwards are Steider Kiswen.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.
Port Moresby.